right, another day, another week, another time for training. So this week we're going to focus more around ServiceMate 11, obviously, but really more of an emphasis around the jobs and the dispatch board a bit more heavily. So let's dive into the demo here, or my demo account. And let me pull up the correct screen on my end. There it is. Okay, so what I want to focus on real quick is scheduling jobs, which now there are three primary ways to schedule with a new one released with ServiceMate 11. So primarily what a lot of teams are kind of used to doing, honestly, is looking at their jobs and scheduling to the dispatch board. Most teams, a lot of teams like the staff schedule view, other teams like the calendar view. It's really more personal preference, honestly. I'm more partial to the staff schedule. The calendar is great, I think, kind of at the week view to kind of digest things. I think it's a little weaker on the day view, where staff schedule, which is mostly what we're focusing on, is the day. Much easier to kind of really see how the schedule is looking and what each staff member has available. So this obviously being a demo account, not a lot going on here, but obviously when this is your account with all your staff members in there and their schedules, it's going to look quite a bit different. But I'm just going to grab a job here and toss it into tomorrow's schedule. And I'm just going to drag and drop that where I want it to be. Now, the biggest thing to keep in mind when I'm doing so is I'm going to grab this job, and you can see it's the time is based on where the start of the job is placed, not necessarily where my cursor is. So my cursor currently is basically at that 10:30 time slot, but you can see this is going to plop it at 10 a.m. So don't focus on where your cursor is, focus on where the start of the job is actually being placed at that point. So primary, first initially, that's how you can schedule a job. Just quickly grabbing the job, finding the job in your job list to the right, and dragging it and dropping it onto either the staff schedule or the calendar. Now, obviously, when I put it on the staff schedule, I'm picking a time and a staff person at the same time, where if I put it on the calendar, if I grab this and drag it somewhere on the calendar here, it says, great, well, it's going to be a 1 hour time slot for here. Who is it for, right? So I do need to take the additional point of saying what staff member I want to place this at. So that's why I typically am more partial to the staff schedule for scheduling. Now, alternatively, if I open up a job and I'm looking at the job here, I can go directly to schedule and use this to help me schedule. Now, where this is helpful is ServiceMate scheduling is helping me schedule the job. And what I mean by that is I can select a staff member here that I want to schedule this to. And it's going to say, great, well, if you want to put this on Micaiah, then here's the earliest time. Now, in this case, because there's not a whole lot on the schedule, earliest is what it shows. However, when it's your schedule and you have possibly dozens of jobs in there, what you're going to see is not just a single time or the earliest time, but you're going to see also, hey, this job is in close proximity to this job that you're trying to schedule, and it may make sense to try and schedule them together if we can, because it's going to be a shorter travel time between the two. So it's trying to help you optimize the schedule when you do it that way. So I could schedule this here and I can pick the dates and the specific times if I want to. Now it's important to note when I'm using this tool, I also have access to something else, and that's the booking link if we have that enabled. And what the booking link allows me to do is say, great, I'm going to text the customer, the job contact on this job, and they will provide a link. And what this hot link does is gives the customer the ability to schedule their own job based on the parameters that you've selected here. So I would just pick this staff person for a 1 hour time slot. It will show the customer all of the times that are available for that specific staff member. Alternatively, if I could say, okay, well, I only want to give them a specific day to schedule against, it will do the same thing and staff member. So that's what the booking link allows for. It says, okay, customer, instead of trying to go back and forth with what times they have available, I'm just going to send you a link and you're going to pick a time based on what makes sense for you. Leave me out of it. A lot easier for you at that point. Okay, so that's a really, really powerful tool. Now, The third way of scheduling is, especially this is nice when you have a very full schedule. But if you said, okay, well, I want to schedule a booking for these 2 hours right here, I could select those times for a specific staff member, and it says, great. Now, what job do I want to put in there? So this is kind of similar to the calendar, where I'm going to drop it on the calendar and I say who it's going to be for. We're kind of doing the reverse here. I'm picking the time slot I want. Now, great. What job are we going to place this with? And I can just simply search for that. Now, if you notice as well, it is giving me some options here, and it notices that job one currently is in the queue, but it tries to really help find a job, and if not, I can always search for one. So you can search for the job number, the company name, a person's name in the job, whatever the case may be. It will help you find a job in relation to that. Or I'm sure at some point this may happen, but it does give us the option to create a new job from this selection as well. Okay. So 3 different ways to schedule a job easily and quickly within ServiceMate. Okay. I'm going to reset here. All right. So we're going to focus on building a new job. So I'm going to hit new job here. And this job is going to be for Johnny Appleseed. Now, when you're creating a new job here and you've typed a customer, and this is a new customer, as we can see, there's no existing customer in my client list here by this name. It says this is a new company or new individual. And there's a few reasons why you actually want to make sure you always, always, always use one of these choices when you do it. You don't just click off and ignore that piece, okay? So when I'm typing in the name here, if I were to say company, well, then it sets it as a company, and there's actually a flag in the background of the client record that indicates that it's not a residential individual type of customer. That's one thing. Secondarily to that, if I were to say it's an individual, which in this case it is, not only was that flag tripped on the client record when it's created, but ServiceMate automatically says, okay, well, I see 2 names here, and if there were more, it would put the 2 and 3 and however many other words you put in there in the last name field, but it automatically puts the first and last name into the job contact, which is where we would want that anyways, right? So that's a few good reasons why we always, always, always want to make sure we do it that way. Now, when you create the job, for most teams, job start is a quote, but if your team sets things up as to be a work order on creation, we can have that preset within your company settings. Set a job category, always, always, always important to do. Now, when we're typing in an address, I'm just going to do 123 Main Street here. Based on the preferences within your account, it will find a nearby street address based on that. And if you select any of those, I'm going to get a automatic placement, and it automatically puts all those terms in for me. And it will automatically as well, at least on creation, that's important to note, at least over here on the side, give me an idea of what my distance is to this location. This data here is not saved in the job. If you did really want to see this data, I'd recommend just grabbing it, copying it, and pasting it as a note if you want to keep that information readily available to you in the future. Okay. Now, job description is a really powerful area beyond just being the description of work for the job. And what I mean by that is there's a little bit of an intelligence in there as well. So not only can I say customer reporting issues with their kitchen sink, I can also provide instructions to my staff members to basically give them a task list of items to do. And there's a few different ways of working with that, and there are some things called job templates, which could be a great way of noting what you want to do and have it automatically placed for you. But let's just talk about what I can do here. So first of all, I can say see front office for access. Okay, that tells them, and it basically gives them a checklist of items. See front office checklist. Yep, done. Now, what I can also do is hit dash here and take photo of sync from top and take photo of sync from bottom. And now if you notice, I'm starting all of these lines with a dash. And what that does, ServiceMate understands that as a task list of items, and on the mobile app, it will automatically become a check-off task list of items for the jobs for the staff to create in the field. And there's also intelligence if it sees the words like photo or video, that when they go to complete that item, it automatically activates the camera to complete it. So they don't have to do this before. They can literally just say, I saw the office, take photo. Okay, I'm going to click this and take the photo. And maybe I'm going to say this from top, take photo of sync from top before. And I'm going to add that to before because maybe I want to have them take it after as well. And I'm just going to make this even easier. I'm just going to select these, copy, paste, and just type after. So this will automatically prompt them to take 4 photos for you automatically, and it's just going to be there ready for them to do. This is a kind of a quick and easy way of doing those very simple tasks, and so they don't have to find the camera or do anything with that. The system itself will help them do those steps. Now, let's talk about contacts here. And there's some really exciting additions in ServiceMate 11, but let's kind of go through them here. So I've got my job contact here for Johnny Appleseed, and his email is johnny@example.com. And his phone number is 513-555-1234. Okay. Now, I put it in the phone, but I realized, I really want this in mobile because we always want to get mobile phone numbers. The reason for that is to make everything a lot easier for when I'm texting customers, or most importantly as well, so it's not an annoying thing for the customer, if we have any follow-up automations taking place. So those are some of the big reasons why we always want to make sure we grab mobile phone numbers. And I'm just going to go ahead and save this. And what's important to note is on the first job for a customer, if I were to click on Johnny Appleseed here, I see all the details we've entered in. And I'm going to close this, and I'm going to go in my phone here. I'm going to say 513-555, and I'm going to do 5678 as the phone number here. I'm going to save that. And once I have, here's this job, you can see it automatically put that into the client record as well. This only happens when it's on the first job for a customer. And what that means is, what I mean by that is, if I did another job for the same customer and I made changes to the job contacts on that job, those would, and anything on the job record, including the address and so on, that those changes would not automatically be applied to the client record. It's only on the first job, because ServiceMate's assuming, maybe you just grabbed a few small bits of information on that customer from the initial onset, and you may add to it, but generally speaking, once that's in, it's in, and that's it. So what I mean to say by that is, should I ever need to update the contact information or any information about the customer moving forward, after the first job especially, we need to do so at the customer record as well, not just the job contact, or not just at the job record. And luckily, ServiceMate made that even easier now, where I can just simply click on the customer name here, and it opens up the job it opens up the customer record to make us. it opens up the customer record to make it easy to just edit that customer record, make those changes there, and then get back to the job. Now, one thing I'm going to do as well is I'm going to add in an additional contact for this record, and maybe we have Sally Appleseed. And this is Sally at example.com. And her mobile phone number is 513-555-4321. Okay. And I'm going to set that as a job contact as well. I could do billing contact or any of these other types as well. I can type anything I want in there. I'm just going to leave it as that at the moment, and I'm going to save this here. Now, the reason I did that is I'm going to add an additional contact. And you can see in the past, ServiceMate only had two, the job contact and the billing contact, which is pretty much what you see from most accounting packages and so on. But now we can have a third contact as well that ServiceMate automatically hard codes as the property manager. And I'm going to just use that one in this case. And you can see it says, do I want to use John or Sally? And I can type anything else I want, but I can also quickly select these. And let's say, no, actually, I'm going to make this one John. And Sally's actually going to be the contact here. Oops. There we go. John Appleseed there. And I'm going to change the job contact to Sally now. And all I need to do is just simply clear the first name, and I see a drop down that lets me select from the client contacts related to this job which contact I want to use. I'm going to select Sally. And you can see I just very quickly now changed both of those and updated them. So that's a really, really great update there on ServiceMate for their contact management. Okay, so one of the things let's talk about as well is different ways that I can see this job card. And what I mean by that, in the past, if we wanted to make this bigger, we'd have to move things around and readjust them. But now I can just simply hit the expand button, and it's going to automatically fill the screen and make it really, really big as we can on this without going edge to edge, but most of the time we really don't need it to do that. And I get a really good big view of this. And the other thing that it does as well is when I start adding line items, and especially line items that may have a lot of content in them, those expand as well. So if I did have this with a lot of content, I would be able to add as much of that content as I really wanted to or needed to and see it all listed here at the job level. Okay. Now, the other thing to note about is when I'm going to go ahead and make this small again. Oops, no, don't do that. And if I were to make a quote, well, I've got this document here, but I want to make it bigger. So I can put this, and I want to see the job behind it as well. So instead of having to kind of have these two windows I'm clicking back and forth with, I can put them side by side. It goes full screen, and I see the document taking up the full right side of the screen, and then my left side is the job itself that I can go between either the quotes and invoicing page as well as the job details. Okay. So now that I have this quote document here, let me just kind of send this as an email to the customer. Now, if you noticed as well, it automatically used an email template because it's a quote. That is a setting as well. We can take a look at that here in a little bit. But it automatically brought in our quote template for the job. It's automatically attached, automatically put the customer's name in, and I'm going to send that off. Great. Nice and easy. Now I've got that as an attachment here to the job in the job diary. And one thing that is new here is I can hit this drop down and hit forward. And this can be really handy if the customer said I didn't receive it, or can you also send it here, whatever the case might be. Without having to resend it, I want to forward it because I want to kind of provide this proof of documentation that, yes, we did send it before. Here's that message forwarded to you again. So this can be really, really handy if you need to send a copy of an existing message out to a customer without having to resend it. And especially if you want to document that, yes, I did send this to you before. But let's talk about in an email, you have the to fields and then you have a CC. And what I definitely want to talk a little bit about here is the twos are fairly straightforward, and when most people think of CCs, you're expecting it to be an additional send to. In ServiceMate, the CC basically is a BCC. And what I mean by that is the recipients don't really see who else received this message as well. More like a BCC. And what that also means is when the customer replies, even if multiple people were in the to field, they will not be receiving it either, because replies basically all go, when it goes sent out, it only goes to individual recipients. So the other people are not listed there. So those replies also don't really go to everyone else at the same time either. Everything just comes back to your job centrally. So it's an important distinction just to know about. But if you do have everything set up correctly and you also receive your emails and correspondence in your normal inbox outside of ServiceMate, which still will allow everything to be saved against itself in the diary, you can obviously send emails to additional people as well there, and they would receive them. Okay. Another addition here in relation to SMS is now we can send a text message to multiple contacts. And while I have Sally here and I hit John, it only really wants us to put one or the other, as you can see. However, if I have, I'm going to copy Sally's here, let's say, and I go to my SMS and it's sent to Johnny. I can hit a comma and paste in the second phone number and allow this to be sent to multiple people at that point. Okay. So overall, the ServiceMate job card is super powerful, super easy to use, and there's a lot going on here, and sometimes even just simply behind the hood. And now I think about it, I think I want to change that. Let's talk a little bit about the diary a little bit more in depth, because as you start creating and adding additional details here, because this job here is new, and I could put it on the schedule as well. Let's just go ahead and throw it on the schedule. Sure. There we go. And there's a lot of different filter options that we can also see in this job. And I can scrub through the job chronologically, which is what the job diary does, is list everything that's happened on this job chronologically. But sometimes, especially when you have a lot of content here, I may want to just see all the communication or all the notes, bookings, whatever the case might be. ServiceMate makes this really easy just now to see only those specific items. So if I say, just show me the email and so on, that's all I would focus on. So I wouldn't have to visually scrub through this sometimes very long list of items. I can just focus in on what I want. And as soon as I click on that filtering again, it resets it, and I can then filter again based on something else. Another nice thing to note here is the edit history. And what this shows us is all the different changes that have really taken place on this job as they've happened and who did them. So I can see when it was updated, what the job descriptions were, went from empty to including these details. The job contact was added, the job contact was changed and updated. So we can see these changes and who made them and what they were as the changes kind of evolved over time. So really, really powerful tools here, both from the diary, the job description with the action items that you can create a task list on the mobile app, the ability to jump to the customer record, the ability to have multiple contacts and to change the contacts easily from what we see in the client record, being able to schedule right from here as well, all the different quotes and line items and invoices. We have a separate training piece on that specifically, but overall, really, really nice and powerful tools here for the job card alone. All right, so let's talk about a few add-ons real quick. So one of the fairly powerful add-ons that's been added as of a few years ago is one that's called automation. Automation simplifies a number of facets of ServiceMate's documents, sorry, ServiceMate automation simplifies using ServiceMate by automating some of the more routine tasks that a lot of admins have to do from day to day. So let me turn this on real quick and give you a more visualization of how this works. So let's go back to settings now that this is on. Sometimes after enabling an add-on, it can take a moment or two to propagate. I'm just going to refresh. I'm going to usually about 10 seconds or so before usually some of these add-ons kick in where I can see them. Great. Here's the automation. And so by default, we see these items kind of set up but turned off initially. So we've got booking confirmation and booking reminder. So what these would do is a booking confirmation would give me the option when I create the booking using the scheduling, using the schedule button from the job card. That's an important distinction. This would give me the option to turn that on, and once on, it would stay on until you would turn it off, to automatically send the customer a automated message letting them know and confirming that, hey, your booking is created. So if I were to turn that, I could turn that on and off, but let's hit edit here. I want to send them a text and email. And I get two different templates to work with here. So I've got my text message and I see the email message below. And with both of them, you'll notice these coding where I've got kind of this open squiggly bracket, a little bit of word code, recipient first, for example, and then a close bracket. Now those, unfortunately, we don't have any of them available here, but I can see over here in the email, I have this area called the insert field, and I can select multiple fields, and wherever my cursor is in my email here at least, that's where that field would be placed. So if I wanted to input the job date, I could just click that and it would populate that code. What I could do is if I wanted to use that up in my text message, I can select that code, cut it, go up to my text message here and simply paste it in. But this is where you can script what verbiage you want outgoing to your customer. I know for some teams it's a little confusing. What's vendor name? That's your company name. So if my company name was Acme Solutions, thank you for confirming your Acme Solutions booking for the booking date and the booking time. And if you have any questions, here's the phone number. That's the company phone number. So I don't have to worry about changing that because sometimes those may change over time. We want to have a single point of reference in a system like ServiceMate to always use that code. So as those things may change and evolve over time, if I had 20 of these different templates, I don't have to go through and find each one. I can update that in one place and everything always uses that. That's why we always want to use those codes when possible. So I've got these templates here, and if I like, I can change the code, and once I'm happy with the coding, I can hit next, and this would be set up. And as you can see here, this is kind of an important thing to note about, especially with these automations that may be going out to customers at different times, that generally speaking, especially text messages will only be going out from between 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. your time to those customers. Okay, so if for whatever reason you're working late, you set up a booking for a customer at 9 p.m., they're not going to get that text message or 11 or 12 o'clock at night. That message would be sent to the customer the following day at 7 a.m. as a text message. Now, this is also why we want to make sure that we get mobile numbers in the mobile field versus the phone number. And what I mean by that is if you were to put someone's landline phone number, or a phone number that doesn't receive text messages in the mobile phone number field, and you have this type of automation enabled where it would want to send them a text message, what usually ends up happening is that customer at 7 o'clock will get a phone call, and it will be a robotic voice reading your script that should be a text message to them over the phone. Oftentimes, rather annoying experience for the customer. So make sure you always put mobile phone numbers in the mobile field. Very important. Okay, so now that we have that enabled, this is one of the more unique ones. Let me just show you what this does. Let me go back to our dispatch board. And if I were to create a booking, and notice I'm doing this from the job card, I now have this new checkbox here that says send booking confirmation. So when this would be created, it would automatically send them a booking notification. If you notice as well, we created that booking for this other job here. It does let me know that, hey, you're going to be 300 miles away. You could theoretically put those together. Obviously, that may be more helpful if it was 3 miles away, but you can at least know that, hey, at 3 p.m. on that same day, you could do that one, and he might be able to make it between 8 to 5. Yeah, that would make sense. He could do an 8 a.m. job there after an hour, probably drive those 300 miles to get to this place by 3. It's probably doable. And ServiceMate's trying to help you with that to make that job smarter, because you definitely wouldn't want to book me at 10 a.m. because there's no way that I would be able to get from this job to this job at 300 miles distance between them. Okay. So let's go back to our automations here. And we see we have a couple more of them. There's the booking reminders, which literally says, okay, if there was a booking for 2 days from now, 3 days from now, whatever it might be coming up, we want to send reminders to the customer about those upcoming bookings. And some of those bookings, let's say, are, and again, you can send email and text message. So what most teams would do is send an email maybe a day before, the day, 24 hours prior, 18 hours prior, whatever that window might be, and then send a text message 1 to 2 hours ahead of the booking time as, again, a reminder. And, because life happens, things change sometimes suddenly, and while they were planning for you to be there, something crazy happened, and it's probably not a good time to remind them, A, that you're coming or planning to be there, and give them a phone number to call if there is a problem they need to reschedule. Okay. Now, another great... Well, before we get into those, let's kind of do some additional items here. We've got a quote follow-up and a payment follow-up. Let's just talk about the follow-ups at the moment. So a quote follow-up will go out to the customer, automatically following up with them after a quote has been sent to them. So I first need to generate a quote document and send that to the customer. Once that happens, the quote follow-up would be enabled. And what that allows you to do is, okay, let's edit the quote follow-up here, send a quote follow-up text message and email. And the biggest thing here is thinking about what you want your cadence and rhythm of conversation with the customer to be like. So let's say I want someone to call a customer a week after we've sent them a quote. Let's say that's going to be your kind of rhythm and cadence. Well, ServiceMate can also do 2 additional touch points with them then. So let's say the following day, 1 day later, I'm going to send them a text message. And then 3 days after the original quote was sent, I want to send them an email. So there was the first day we sent them the quote. The next day, they receive a text message about that quote. And then another 2 days after that, so 3 days total after the initial quote was sent to them, they got a follow-up email. And then we would have put that job into a job queue for 1 week. After that week is over, it would be, hey, I'm no longer in a queue, and that would be the call to action for your team to do a follow-up call with that customer, right? So let me go ahead and next this, and just like before, we see a text message section and an email body section, and this is where we would customize those messages, and they would automatically go out to the customer. And we can see the details here. Yep, that's just going to automatically happen. Those same 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. rules will still apply for us. Let me go back to our job here. So this was sent to the customer, and I'm just going to send this again to the customer here. Let me go to my document, and email and send. Okay. Now that we've done that after that quote follow-up has been introduced, we see these 2 options here automatically coming up for us. And we saw a little bounce message over there because that's not a real email, right? It's an example. And we see we have a scheduled SMS and a scheduled email set to go out here shortly. Now what we can do, and this may be helpful at some times, to be able to cancel that upcoming follow-up. And if you want to do so, you can. But since ServiceMate 11, ServiceMate also introduced a turn off for this customer. So let's say they don't want to receive, hey, please stop sending me text messages. I don't want to get them, at least the automated ones. Can you just turn those off? We can turn them off with just this customer at this point. So now the follow-up, the quote follow-up has been disabled for this customer, and they won't go out. So let me rephrase that. It sounds like. So if I wanted to disable yes, we close that. Let's see this again here. So if I disable for the customer, it disables the quote follow-ups in general. So this would disable both text message and email follow-ups to this customer. So that's an important distinction. So it wouldn't be just turning off text messages or emails. It's going to turn them both off. So if the customer doesn't want to get those follow-up messages, or you don't want this customer to be receiving those automated messages, you wanted to handle that internally, you can disable for this customer in general. Okay. So invoice follow-ups do the same thing, where it sends them, hey, a payment has been sent, payment request has been sent to you. You can send them a text and email address at different intervals of time to that customer. And just like quote, keep in mind, it will only send one of each of those options to that customer. So quote, we really probably only want to do one, or one anyways, a single quote, a single SMS, and a single email. However, payments, keep in mind it will only send one of those also. So if, after the first message was sent out to the customer, SMS, and then the email was sent to the customer, ServiceM8 is not going to continue pursuing those. It has to be done manually. That's kind of where the live statements come into play. So where live statements is a way of automatically sending the customer follow-up messages about outstanding invoices. And these can be sent out weekly, bi-weekly, or monthly. And you know when they're going to go out on the Monday of the weekly or bi-weekly, or on the first day of that month. And again, we see an email message body, and they get a statement link. And what that statement link would do is, especially if you have customers that have multiple invoices, multiple jobs that you do for them often, it would list all of them together and give them a total, as well as an option to pay each job just the way ServiceMate operates. You pay per job, right? But the biggest thing to keep in mind is it only lists jobs that have become past due. And what I mean by that is it all depends on the terms that you have, the billing terms you have with that customer. So if your typical terms are COD, then they're all going to be listed there. But let's say you have a net 30 or net 60 on that customer, and you just did a job for them last week. Well, if they're a net 30 customer, that the 30 days have not expired yet, they're still within those 30 days. So that job that you just did a week ago would not be listed on that statement of work. Okay, and that kind of is outlined here as well. Now, it is important to note, and we're going to jump to this as well, especially on this piece, that you can go to the clients, and then under their billing details, you have to basically enable send live statements. So live statements are not going to go to every customer. You do need to enable them per customer that you want them to go out to, but you can do that in bulk now as well. And yep, so this is where the jobs have been complete, invoice has been sent, and most importantly, it is unpaid and it is balance due. So what I was saying there is, if I go to clients and I go to Johnny Appleseed here, I can go to the billing details, and we now see an option here that says send live statements. And now this customer, you can see the payment terms are set to 30 days. So if I just did a job for them again last week and the live statement went out this week, that job would not be listed there. It would only be jobs that are older than 30 days since their date of completion. Okay. And you can see as well, if I go through and I can click on a bunch of customers here, and I can say apply live statements, and this would automatically apply live statements to those customers. Boom. So now this customer here also has live statements enabled. So it's a good way to do that in bulk instead of having to do it one at a time. So you can look through a list, this one, this one, this one I want, apply, next page, and just keep going like that. So it's a way of quickly applying those items. Now, an additional automation that we see here is customer feedback. This is a really powerful add-on that we first have to turn on. So let's go do that first. And let's take a look at what the feedback add-on provides for us. All right, so let's turn this on here. Perfect. And you can see, let's just kind of go to this link here. And this is kind of what the customer would see. They'd see your logo, your phone number at the top here. This is sort of a generic, not real. And a simple 5-star rating and then a comment place. That's it. Nice and easy for the customer. But this gives the customer not only a great place for the customer to provide and share their feedback about how you did, but once it's turned on, let's go back to settings here. And we see now we have a feedback module in our settings. This feedback code can be added to our outgoing documentation to the customer. And I also have a place that I can add a Facebook review link and a Google review link. And since ServiceM8 11, there's been some updates on how Google works. So let's talk about Facebook at the moment. So if I were to add a URL for my Facebook review link, which you can get from Facebook, customers that provide you a 4 or 5-star rating, their customer feedback will automatically push, customers that provide 4 or 5-star rated feedback will be given the opportunity to say, hey, thank you for that feedback. We would love it if you would also give that on our Facebook page. And it would give them a link to go to your Facebook page after that point. What that does is helps you weed out and vet that they want to provide you good feedback. And if they were to leave a 1, 2, or 3-star rating option, it would not give them the option to do that. This is sort of a good filtering mechanism for any disgruntled customer that may come along, and you get that feedback and have that not go public. However, so many people wanted the customers just to go directly to Google that now if you leave your Google review link and you place that in and the customer hits the feedback link, they will now be directed directly to your Google review link moving forward. So that's a good distinction to keep in mind. So now that we have that enabled, I can go back to automations for my customer feedback. Again, I can send text or email. And after the invoice is paid, I can have a message, text and or email, go out to the customer asking, hey, we would love your feedback. Now, an important note here is when the customer, once you've had the feedback enabled and the customer makes a payment, they are given the opportunity to also provide you feedback at that time. This simply will go out to customers who did not take that initial opportunity to provide that feedback. So you're simply asking them again, hey, thank you for paying. We would love your feedback for anyone who hasn't done so already. And that's what this message would go out to. It kind of was just kind of a, hey, we would love it. Please, please, please. We would love that feedback. And if you notice, there is the link in here that would automatically give them a quick link to be able to jump to that feedback page. And again, if you did have it connected to Facebook after they left a 4 or 5-star rating, it would give them the option of sending it to Facebook. If you've got a Google link in there, they click that link, it would send them directly to your Google page. It is important to note as well that some teams see the same customers over and over again, sometimes every week or maybe even multiple days a week. And getting that same feedback automation all the time could become a little redundant. So now, once a customer does leave feedback, they would not receive those messages until 30 days. So if you are there, 4, 5, 10 times in a month, they would only receive one call to leave feedback. Um, and even if they didn't, it would be only sent one time every 30 days. So your customers aren't getting bombarded with all these requests for feedback all the time. They only send one now every 30 days. Okay. The only other thing I wanted to try and touch on today as we're kind of wrapping up is with ServiceMate Phone. And I'm going to jump to my actual account for this. Just a second. So if you're not already familiar with ServiceMate Phone, it is a integrated phone solution within ServiceMate that allows you to very easily have additional communication path. How do I want to phrase this? So within the ServiceMate job, we already have text messages and email messages that we can send and interact with customers. Without service, generally speaking, we have an additional communication pattern with customers. We have additional communication channel with customers. Okay, come here. Come on. Come on. Sorry, my dog was getting a little antsy. So we have an additional communication channel with customers, which are phone calls. ServiceMate Phone allows us to capture those communications with customers and have them placed alongside of our email and SMS communications as well. Not only the phone call happened, but also provide us the recording and transcription automatically with that as well. So it makes it very, very easy to quickly review a call, see what was discussed, and sometimes it works somewhat comically, but there is also a summary that through AI will listen to the call and say, okay, pretty sure this was the gist of what was discussed in the call. So really, really powerful tool. And once you have ServiceMate Phone established, ServiceMate does provide you a phone number. However, by and large, you're not going to use that phone number. You most likely already have an existing phone number that we want to use. And so what we want to do is have calls that may come to that phone number forward to ServiceMate Phone. That's where the calls would basically terminate. And when you make calls out of ServiceMate Phone, I would assume you probably want to have those outbound message calls going through that same phone number. And all you would simply do is claim that number. So that way, anyone using ServiceMate Phone on your team, when they make that outgoing call is recorded, or I should say, it shows as your company phone number to go along there. You do have the option after so much time to port your phone number into ServiceMate Phone. However, at the moment, we are not currently recommending doing that. At last check, ServiceMate does not have a good mechanism or any mechanism currently for getting that number back out of ServiceMate should you ever want to have it go somewhere different or move your phone services somewhere different. So I'm not recommending that at the moment. If you're not currently, maybe you may be just finally expanding your business and maybe that current phone number is your cell phone or something along those lines, we can definitely work with you if you need some help with getting a good phone system before ServiceMate Phone, whether it be something very basic or something a bit more expansive. We always recommend having, whether it is an actual person or a digital IVR system, IVR meaning an interactive receptionist. I'm sorry, having an interactive virtual receptionist. And where that's helpful, and I'm sure as a business you've seen these, all the spam and robocalls and all those things, it's annoying as an individual. It's even more annoying as a business. So having that IVR, that interactive virtual receptionist, being the recipient of those messages, your company won't get those anymore. And basically, as soon as the robocaller or the person in telemarketer, whoever it is, hitting that virtual receptionist, they hang up and move on to the next person. So free up your team from getting all those spam messages. They just go away. But ServiceMate Phone, there's a lot of really powerful tools here. And chief among them is how we want to interact with our calls during business hours and after hours. So during business hours, you can set up a call group, and then those are the people within your team who would be answering the phone. And you can also have automated messages play for them when they, if you want. You can have the calls recorded or not. And then after hours, you can choose to have that call go to voicemail or to call a staff member, a person on staff, a on-call staff member. That's the word I'm thinking of. And then down here under advanced settings, we have what's called the secondary call group. And what the secondary call group is, let's just say for a typical team, you've got an admin or two, and they're typically the ones fielding all the calls, right? So if they get overloaded and can't pick it up, sometimes there's an additional person or two that may be able to take those calls. That would be the secondary call group. And so you can set this up to say either, no, we don't want to do that, or maybe for after hours only do this, or business hours only. So let's just say business hours only. We want to have that, and have that go either to a set of staff members or to an external phone number. Where this is helpful is, let's say you want it to go to a call center, maybe an after hours call center, or someone that we could answer the phones, but they're not part of they're not necessarily one of your main team members. Let's say it's your wife, or who knows, anyone else that could maybe help, but they're just not in the day-to-day ServiceMate environment, but they can be fielding those calls. You can have the call then come into ServiceMate and then leave ServiceMate after that, based on these parameters. So you can have that happen during business hours, after hours, or during and after hours. If the calls are not answered internally, go to this phone number externally. Okay, that's something new that was added in 11. The other thing that we see under these advanced settings is hold music. So if you did place the customer on hold, you can control the hold music there. But overall, if you're not already using ServiceMate Phone, super powerful tool. The other big advantage of it, not only to have all the calls logged to the job, just like all the other communication type, but also your staff in the field. When they call the customer, they're calling then from your company phone number, not their personal cell phone numbers. Super, super important and helpful, because obviously not only from a retention lens, but also making sure that the customer is given a good experience, and when they call back, they're calling you and not your guy in the field who may or may not be available at that time. The other really nice addition is if your staff member calls the customer and the customer didn't answer right away because they didn't know who it was and they left a voicemail, oh, this is them, and they call back, ServiceMate Phone will automatically reroute that inbound call directly to the field staff person, so that way it doesn't have to go through your office staff to go to them. So also really, really powerful tool at that point. So again, if you're not using ServiceMate Phone, highly, highly recommend it. All right. So that kind of covers everything I was really hoping to kind of go over today. Had a pretty lengthy piece there. Obviously, if you ever have questions on ServiceMate, feel free to reach out to myself, my team. We'd love to help you, and I guess that's it for us today. Thanks for stopping by, and we'll hope to see you next time.